As we reach the embers of 2025, All Elite Wrestling ventured to the Great White North. Tom Campbell from Cultaholic Wrestling here. And before we lean into the fallout, let's look at what happened at AEW All Out. Before All Out got underway, we had the tailgate, starting with Samoa Joe and Powerhouse Hobbs of the Opps facing the WorkHorsemen. A meaty appetizer that saw 2/3 of the Trios champs pick up the win via Samoa Joe's Kahita clutch. Then their buddy Shibata took the fight to the newest member of the Death Riders, Daniel Garcia. Daddy Magic on commentary chastising his former mentee when he drop-kicked the steel steps into Shibata's head. Shibata would rally, we get a tale of submissions and strikes between both men, and Shibata would weather 2 pile drivers from Garcia, and had Marina Shafir not distracted the referee, he would have got the submission victory too. However, he was unable to weather a 3rd pile driver and a curb stomp to give Daniel Garcia the win. Hologram, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong were jumped by the Frat House to start their trios match in earnest. Despite the jump start, they fell in quick order, with Griff, Garrison of the Frat House taking a hazing in the form of a high-low from Paragon and a double stomp from Hologram. The tailgate party peaks with the tailgate brawl. Julia Hart, Sky Blue, Penelope Ford, and Megan Bayne facing Mina Shirakawa, Queen Aminata, Harley Cameron, and Willow Nightingale. After a babyface team flurry, Megan uses Penelope as a human torpedo to turn the tide. The heels come a cropper in an 8-woman suplex centipede before the tailgate barbecue implements come out. Oh, and a stapler, which Harley Cameron uses on Sky Blue's backside. It's a messy old brawl around the barbecue before Willow gets her ass stapled and powerbombed onto a beer cooler by Julia Hart. The end comes with Willow pouncing the Megasus from the ring to the floor, where she eats a table to the head. Also, 2/3 of the Triangle of Madness get kicked whilst trapped in a barbecue. Willow wraps it all up with a Dr. Bomb to Penelope, and they all dance around the ring with beer coolers and polystyrene. Lovely stuff. From here, All Out begins proper, with footage from earlier today of Adam Copeland and Christian Cage walking the corridors of the Scotiabank, where they encounter Maple Leafs legend Wendell Clark, Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys, and the Green Bastard, who told the lads to start handing people no mercy. They've got backup. With that, we open with tag team action. The homecoming Cope and Cage facing FTR. It's a steady start, with the Canadian boys showing some decent tag team technique. Christian, however, finds himself on the receiving end of a double draping DDT, which puts FTR in the driving seat until Cope takes the wheel with a hot tag. After seeing John Cena pay homage to him with his trademark spear on SmackDown recently, Cope takes a beat to return the favor with the 5-knuckle shuffle and an FU in a really cool moment. It sadly wasn't able to cure tribalism, but it did get a near fall and a big reaction from the crowd. The tributes kept coming, with Cope and Cage locking in stereo sharpshooters on FTR, with Stokely Hathaway saving his team from a tap-out. Cope and Cage hit each other's respective finishers on Dax and Cash, but Stoke pulled the referee out of the ring to stop the count, which is the cue for Beth Phoenix to rise from the ashes and make a shocking appearance, spearing the life out of Stoke and taking him to the back out of the way. Behind every great man is a great woman willing to spear Stokely Hathaway. Cope and Cage's momentum is halted moments later when Cash powerbombs Christian onto the announce table and Cope eats a spike pile driver for a near fall. Cope even kicks out of a shatter machine, but falls prey to a second moments later. Cage is able to recover in time to prevent a third, grabbing Dax and making him watch as Cope hits a spear on Cash and gets the 3. We're getting ever closer to a hug between these two proper, but we're interrupted by by Nick Wayne and Mother Wayne. The perfect distraction for FTR and Kip Sabian to attack Cope and Cage from behind. Cope gets handcuffed into the corner, and he is made to watch Christian Cage eat a spike piledriver before Beth Phoenix, despite her best efforts against Cash and Dax, meets the same fate. Not the homecoming Adam Copeland and Christian Cage or Beth Phoenix were hoping for. Fans in Toronto left asking, "Where was the green bastard? He said he had their backs!" The in-ring return of Eddie Kingston takes center stage next as he goes to war with Big Bill. Heavy chops to start, but Bill welcomes Eddie back with a boot to the face, a choke across the ropes, and a bunch of strikes across the body that wear Kingston down. Eddie rises up, unleashes some machine gun chops and an exploder suplex before he is put down once more with a pair of black hole slams. Eddie counters the chokeslam with a DDT, hits the spinning back fist, but Bill kicks out at one, much to the confusion of Eddie Kingston. A second back fist, which, according to Bryan Danielson, may have just about caught the lower part of his jaw, does the trick and puts Bill down for 3. No respite for Eddie Kingston as he gets jumped by Brian Keith. To his aid comes Hook, who puts Keith in red rum and leaves him wide open for a spinning back fist by Eddie. It seems that in his return match, Eddie Kingston has found a new friend, and a new alliance has been born between Kingston and Hook. 24 hours prior, MJF lost his CMLL title to Mystico, and he promised he would take his frustrations out on Mark Briscoe in our next contest, a tables and tax match. Briscoe, the victim of some very personal attacks from Maxwell, pours 2 buckets of tacks in the center of the ring for he and MJF to dance in. Back and forth blows and slam attempts ultimately lead to MJF poking Briscoe in the eyes and body slamming Briscoe into the tacks for first blood. He then drives his forehead into the spikes and generates heat by folding up the tables around the ring and putting them back under the ring like a right wrong'un. He hits an Alabama slam onto a shirtless Mark Briscoe shortly after this and drags him around the bed of pins, and then, open wide, Mark Briscoe is forced to eat a handful of pins for good measure. Briscoe will retaliate though, back body dropping MJF onto the pins, even cracking him with a big standing spine buster for a near fall. Before long, the match spills outside, both pin-cushioned participants punishing one another. Briscoe landing a diving senton through a table and a cactus jack elbow off the apron through yet another table. MJF fought back, throwing thumbtacks into Briscoe's face, only to be dropped with a powerbomb onto the tacks for a near fall. MJF pushes back with a tombstone piledriver onto a tack-covered chair, but despite using the Undertaker's signature pin, the fight was far from over. To that end, MJF brought out 2 more bags containing, yeah, you guessed it, more tacks, and poured them over another table. It was MJF's undoing, though, as it became the landing site for a froggy Boeing Briscoe, driving MJF through the table as he went. Briscoe would finish strong, punishing MJF for invoking his brother's name by landing a J-Driller into the thumbtacks for the win. In the car park, Jerry Lynn continued to try and broker a deal between Max Caster and Anthony Bowens to bring the Acclaimed back together, basically telling them to team up or be suspended. It didn't go down very well. 2 teams that do get on with each other, but aren't fans of the other, mind, are in action next as The Demand face the Hurt Syndicate. Both teams sizing each other up from the off, with Shelton Benjamin and Bishop Khan getting into a heated exchange of strikes and holds. Ricochet sizes up Bobby Lashley, but he'd be treated to a backdrop into the sun and a stalling suplex for his trouble. MVP got amongst it, leveling Ricochet with a ball-in elbow to roll back the years. MVP would get isolated by the GOA for the longest time, but eventually A backdrop by MVP got Big Bad Bobby back in business, obliterating everyone and hitting a Dominator on Ricochet for a near fall. Shelty B would see some action, hitting a lovely double German suplex. Enter Bobby, peeling out spears like they're going out of fashion until Ricochet lands a 450 to break up Bobby's pin attempt. It falls outside the ring where Shelton Benjamin saves Lashley from something awful at the hands of Toa Leona, with Bishop Khan bashing Shelty and Ricochet diving onto all of them. Shelton and Bobby get wiped out by a running Leona. Into the crowd you go, leaving MVP all on his own. He holds his own until Ricochet shoots him point blank with the spirit gun to give the demand the 1, 2, 3. The TBS Championship on the line next as Mercedes Moné defends against Riho. The challenger comes out of the blocks quicker than a whippet with a bum full of dynamite. Series of roll-ups, submission attempts, a tiger feint kick sending Moné to the outside, and double foot stomps from the apron and, after politely asking permission, from the announce table too. Mercedes finally gets a purchase in this match, trapping Riho between the ring and the apron and pummeling her before landing a meteora off the announce desk. She didn't ask permission for the record. Moné then puts the pressure on back in the ring with a pendulum and a surfboard stretch, but Riho gives as good as she gets, giving us a Michael Oku special with a deep half crab and a tilt-a-whirl crossface. Both go back and forth, Mercedes tipping the scales her way with a superplex for Amigos. However, Riho dodges a frog splash, hits another double stomp for a close call. A lung blower and a sunset flip powerbomb into the corner, quickly followed by knees to the face, gives Moné just 2 again. And it gives us this face of absolute frustration. The kind of frustration one would have when you, expect a Sega Mega CD for Christmas, but get a blue lunchbox for school instead. No shade, I did need a lunchbox, but I really wanted to play Sonic CD on Christmas Day. Riho fights back into it with some power move near falls, but Moné grabs the referee to stop the octopus being applied, and as the ref pulls away, Moné rakes the eyes, hits a lung blower and a moneymaker, and the CEO is still TBS champion. Next, the AEW Unified Championship is up for grabs as both Konosuke Takeshita and Mascara Dorada challenge the Unification Man, Kazuchika Okada. Attempts to throw Dorada out of the ring are easily thwarted as he controls the tempo of this three-way dance very early on. Takeshita's boot to Dorada's face does fix that briefly. He's not down for long, though. He lands a plancha onto both Okada and Takeshita, but Konosuke knows his games and ultimately drops him with a brain buster onto the ramp. Just as Dorada is able to put Takeshita down, Okada re-enters the equation, tripping him up from outside the ring and attempting to unmask him. As Dorada fights back, he's dropped with a DDT. The inevitable showdown between Okada and Takeshita is going to have to wait as Okada rakes the eyes of Takeshita before going back to the methodical, zen-like deconstruction of Mascara Dorada. Dorada gets another wind, hits corkscrew dives to both of his opponents, but it's not long until the champ is slowing it down once again. After a diving elbow to Dorada, we get the confrontation between Okada and Takeshita with a series of hot and heavy counters, ending with Takeshita countering the Rainmaker with a Blue Thunder Bomb. Back comes Dorada, who gets a near fall on Takeshita with a Destroyer and a 450, but Okada pulls Dorada out of the ring to save the title. Okada and Takeshita battle on the top rope, and once more, Dorada inserts himself in explosive fashion with a tandem Frankensteiner. Dorada would find himself on the outside once more as Takeshita and Okada get amongst it once again. Wheelbarrow suplex by Takeshita. Power up and drop kick by Okada. Power up by Takeshita. Tombstone by Okada. No 3 count to be found, though. Dorada moonsaults his way back into the match, but he cannot get a 3. Takeshita obliterates Dorada with a last ride powerbomb and a running knee, but he wants to pin Okada to win the title. Instead, he gets his running knee blocked and a drop kick from the champ. The 3 men are swimming in deep water, striking back and forth until Takeshita lands a huge double German suplex. But Dorada, the wisest man in the ring, lands on his feet and reverses a powerbomb into a pin attempt for a seriously near fall. Dorada DDTs Okada onto the hardest part of the ring, but gets halted by a superplex by Takeshita, followed by a raging fire. Okada re-enters the match to absorb a huge elbow from Takeshita and rebound with a Rainmaker to retain the AEW Unified title. A standing ovation from the crowd for what was one hell of a battle. Don Callis celebrates with Okada whilst Takeshita heads to the back. Jon Moxley heads to the ring for his coffin match with Darby Allin, but Darby doesn't want to wait any longer. This match begins in the crowd with Darby battling Mox before landing a coffin drop off the entranceway. Moxley and Allin are all in at All Out. They brawl through the Toronto fans and to the ringside area where Allin bites Moxley's ear until it bleeds. Mox props up the coffin, and as he does, Darby Allin bursts into existence, projectiling headfirst into Mox and the coffin. From here, Mox drops Darby on the floor before dropping him onto another coffin at ringside. The Death Riders appear as Marina Shafir loosens the bottom rope. They help get the coffin into the ring before leaving Moxley to it. And from here, Mox punishes Darby Allin, trapping his fingers in the coffin, striking him across the head several times. Midway through the beating, Mox tells Darby that he loves him and kisses him on the forehead. I think the power of love brings Darby back to life. He uses a fork hidden in the top turnbuckle to stab Moxley over and over again before dropping him with a coffin drop on the coffin. Mox gets his fingers trapped in the coffin just as Darby had before being Scorpion death dropped by Darby. This just seems to make Mox mad, and he attempts to stab Darby with the fork, but it's Darby that ends up using it again. Mox retaliates by hitting the Death Rider onto the top of the coffin. He tries to put Darby in it, but Darby gets his hand out, clutching a pipe. And seconds later, that pipe is cutting off the oxygen to Jon Moxley's head. Darby goes to the announce table where Bryan Danielson very casually pulls a bag out. A bag containing a plastic bag. Darby chokes the life out of Mox with the bag over his head, kicking his head in the process, Bryan Danielson style. As Darby goes to put Moxley in the coffin, Darby Allin is attacked by Pac, making his return after months of absence. Pac crucifix powerbombs Darby Allin over the top rope and onto the coffin outside the ring before throwing Darby back into the ring and putting him in a body bag. It is academic from here as Pac zips up the bag, dumps him in the coffin, and Moxley closes the lid. Mox wins with a big assist from the Death Riders' favorite Geordie, Pac. As the carnage from the last match is cleared away, all eyes turn to the AEW Women's World Championship as Tekla, Chris Statlander, and Jamie Hayter all vie to hold the gold held by timeless Toni Storm. Wheelie Yuta G's up Chris Statlander as part of their ongoing attempts to get her into the Death Riders. He then leaves as the battle gets underway. Tekla starts strongest, wiping out the entire playing field, and then whipping the bejesus out of Toni Storm with her belt. Hayter uses her neckerchief to choke the life out of Tekla, but the toxic spider is relentless, busting out spider suplexes to all that come towards her. The spider walk across the ring is interrupted by Toni Storm, who squashes her like a bug before Jamie Hayter kicks it into high gear with suplexes and double suplexes all round, as well as a rebound lariat to Chris Statlander. Toni takes control with a hip attack and a Storm Zero on Statlander, but Jamie Hayter breaks up the cover, and we get an exchange of strikes between the two and a litany of counters before Hayter lands the Hate Breaker and Haterade in one very smooth transition, but Tekla stops the cover and tries to steal the win for herself. Tekla wraps her legs around Toni's head, but Hayter breaks it and the two battle on the apron until Tekla spears Hayter off the apron to the cold, hard floor. Back in the ring, Statlander catches Toni Storm in a cradle that Wheeler Yuta taught her, and just like that, Statlander gets the 3 count and becomes the new AEW Women's World Champion. Toni Storm is shocked, to say the very least. Fireworks go off, and Harley Cameron runs out to celebrate as Chris Statlander stands tall as the brand new AEW Women's World Champion. Ladder match o'clock for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. It's the Young Bucks versus Josh Alexander and Hetrocero of the Don Callis family versus Jet Speed versus the reigning champs Brody Doe. Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight are wearing Sonic the Hedgehog and Tails-inspired gear. They can do it on a cold night in Chemical Plant Zone, but can they do it on pay-per-view in Toronto? Let's find out. All 4 teams exchange advantage with doubles-based offense early on. Brody King asserting his dominance by suplexing 3 of the challengers at once, but therefore eating a ladder and a plancha from the Young Bucks soon after as a result. A parade of dives follows with Speedball moonsaulting Bandido onto a ladder, unfortunately being held by Brody King. Bodies are sent crashing into a ladder propped up in the corner with Mike Bailey, Josh Alexander, Brody King, and Hetrocero all meeting it in quick succession until the Young Bucks double-team Bandido into the ladder to close the circle. From here, Speedball takes a tag team pasting from Matthew and Nicholas Jackson until Kevin Knight comes to his partner's aid. He's rewarded with a world's strongest slam by Josh Alexander onto the ring apron. A pact is formed with the Don Callis family and the Young Bucks from here, but the team meeting is interrupted by Brody King with a ladder across their heads. Brody attempts a dive, but gets a ladder across the face for his trouble, as the Callis clan and the Young Bucks rearrange furniture and dismantle Brodido and Jet Speed. Brody King gets swanton bombed whilst lying on a ladder, but the union with the baddies is broken when the Young Bucks attempt to climb the ladder and get the belts themselves. Superkick party to Hetrocero and Josh Alexander, followed by some pointed ladder blows, leaves the Bucks alone in the ring until Jet Speed burst back to life in the ring and send them packing. Brody King recovers to stop Speedball and Knight ascending, and when he's taken out with a double team, Bandido steps in to slow down Jet Speed and make a grab for gold, only to be speared off the ladder by Knight as Bailey dives onto the players outside. Nick Jackson's ladder attempt ends in being dumped out of the ring and diving onto the warm bodies below. Cue a Jet Speed Young Bucks chicken fight intercepted by Bandido on Brody King's shoulders before the ladder comes crashing down and everyone hurts inside. Hetrocero innovates on a raised ladder with a surfboard stretch to Mike Bailey, but Speedball gets out and lands the ultimate weapon off the ladder and onto Hetrocero. An awful landing for all involved, one that should have seen both guys lose all their rings. Bandido and Josh Alexander are scrapping on top of the ladder, Bandido opting not to grab the titles, instead land a sunset flip onto Josh Alexander onto a ladder below. As a result, he was wide open for a DDT onto the apron, and from here a symphony of destruction unfolds. The Bucks wipe out Josh Alexander and Bandido with table dives, whilst Brody King drives Bailey through a ladder. Battles atop the ladder are exchanged until the big boys, Brody and Hetrocero, fight, and Alexander brings Brody down. Kevin Knight ascends amongst the chaos, only to have his ladder lifted by all the competitors and tilted, so he crashes and burns through a stack of tables outside. The Callis family crack out the low blows, but the Young Bucks sort them out with a super kick party and an EV trigger. Brody dumps them outside, and Bandido KOs the Bucks with a moonsault whilst holding a ladder. Brody finally lands that dive, leaving Bandido to get back in the ring and grab the titles, concluding a wild ladder match and retaining the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Post-match, the Bucks are confronted by Jack Perry, who hasn't been seen in a good long while. After an intense stare down, Perry strikes, gets some shots in on the Bucks as well, and Brandon Cutler, before being super kicked for his trouble. Before the Bucks can hit the EVP trigger, the arena goes dark. That video of the body being dug up and that huge hulking mass being brought back to life is shown. It's Luchasaurus. He appears in the ring and chokeslams Matt and Nick Jackson. He removes a belt embossed with Kill Switch and throws it into the crowd. Kill Switch no more. Luchasaurus and Jack Perry embrace. And Baltimore's Tarzan Boy plays across the arena. The crowd sing along and cheer as Jurassic Express officially reunite. This heartwarming moment ends when we go backstage where Darby Allin puts Jon Moxley in a body bag and sets him on fire. Yes, Darby gets dragged away from the scene by AEW personnel. Oh, wait a minute. Hello, UK indie star Amir Jordan. How are you doing? With that, we reach our main event as Kyle Fletcher challenges Hangman Adam Page for the AEW World Championship. A match with no interference by the Don Callis family permitted, or else Kyle Fletcher is stripped of his AEW TNT title. A technical start sees Page and Fletcher evenly matched with chops and strikes, with Fletcher breaking the cycle with a super kick and some punches to the head. The match spills outside where Fletcher throws Page into the crowd and hits a running plancha over the barricade. They get back towards the ring, but not for long, as they are back out again. Fletcher dumping Page off the top rope as he attempts a moonsault to the floor, following up with an apron powerbomb to the champion. Page on the back foot from here as Kyle pulls out a table from under the ring. Fletcher gets a near fall after dropping Page headfirst whilst draped over the ropes, and another of a huge Michinoku driver. A perfect diving elbow also only gets a 2, and Fletcher's crab submission sees Page make the ropes. A desperation clothesline out of the corner gives the champ an opening. Page lands 2 fallaway slams, but Fletcher avoids a dead eye before getting clotheslined out of the ring, where he eats a moonsault and then a double powerbomb in the ring. Another dead eye attempt is countered, and it leads to the two jockeying for a tombstone before Page goes for a moonsault and eats a super kick. Whopper of a powerbomb from the challenger only gets a 2 count. Fletcher attempts a draping DDT outside, but Hangman rocks him with a pile driver. He goes for the diving moonsault to the floor once more, but Fletcher dodges and cracks him with a running kick and a brain buster off the barricade through a table. Fletcher gets Hangman back in the ring, lands a kick to the back of Hangman's head and to the front of the head for good measure, before dropping Page with one more sheer drop brain buster, but somehow Page powers out. He battles out of a superplex as well, but succumbs to a barrage of kicks and running knees from Kyle Fletcher. He's able to avoid one on the apron by landing a deadeye through the table set up at ringside. Hangman goes for the buckshot lariat, but Kyle Fletcher collapses and consequently misses the move, staying alive just about. Page hits Omega's running knee, doesn't quite get the angel wings in though, but lands a deadeye that Fletcher kicks out of. Fletcher goes for the Stormbreaker, but it's reversed into Swerve's big pressure for a near fall. Both guys paying homage to previous rivals. Fletcher counters a buckshot twice, once with an inside cradle, another with a brainbuster, but neither gets the W. Kyle starts mockingly kicking Page in the head as the champ struggles to his feet. Page is swinging with everything he has left as Kyle laughs at him before landing some kicks to the head and a short arm lariat. Kyle exposes the turnbuckle and kicks Page into it before attempting a brainbuster onto the exposed buckle. Hangman Page desperately fights out of it, bashing Fletcher's head into said exposed buckle and following up with an avalanche deadeye. A buckshot lariat moments later connects and gives Hangman Page the 3 count to retain the AEW World title. All Out goes off air with Adam Page, battered but glorious, raising the World Championship aloft to the crowd in Toronto. That was AEW All Out. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. I've been Tom Campbell from Cultaholic Wrestling. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.